From the unpredictable and shocking merger between golf's bitter rivals to the political involvement and opposition from senior Democrats, here's why the PGA and LIV Golf merger is under investigation. For one, no one saw it coming, not even the players. If anything, the PGA and LIV Golf merger has players concerned for everything that's about to come under the new commercial entity. The pact is complicated and incomplete, especially after the fact that the relationship between the two leagues was brutal. You see, players who joined the Saudi-backed LIV were forced to resign from the PGA Tour because they were threatened with suspension and fines. At one point, LIV even sued the PGA Tour, who countersued, and there was just this back and forth going on. At the time, many PGA Tour supporters even claimed that LIV came in for one purpose: just so that the Saudi government could distract attention from its human rights record. On the other hand, LIV supporters claimed that the PGA Tour was nothing more than a monopoly that used inappropriate tactics just to maintain its position at the top. So here's the question: despite that kind of rivalry, why are they joining forces now? Well, there are definitely a few conditions to the deal. For one, the PGA Tour is still going to stick around as a non-profit organization, even if they've got full control over the tournaments. But when it comes to their commercial business and rights, it's going to be owned by a new entity called NewCo that's also going to own LIV, along with commercial and business rights of the DP World Tour. As for the board of directors, that's where the Saudi government steps in, with Yasir Al Rumayyan leading the board. And you know what that means. PIF, Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, has already splashed billions of dollars into LIV, and now it's all for the new entity. Now, the golf calendar for 2023 would probably remain the same, and they're not going to do anything about the team element to LIV's format either. In fact, no one's really sure about any big changes coming up. But at least the merger is going to end about 2 years of legal disputes between the organizations and the players. But it seems like things aren't going to be all that great, right now anyway, because the Justice Department is gearing up to investigate the deal. You see, they already informed the PGA Tour that they're going to review the proposed deal. And while LIV Golf wasn't ready to answer any questions, the PGA Tour said that they're confident that their deal is going to benefit players, fans, and even the sport itself. If I'm being honest, once the Justice Department steps in, you can also expect the US antitrust authorities to get involved. And that's not going to be pretty. The announcement of the deal itself sparked antitrust concerns, and the Justice Department was already conducting an investigation into professional golf, especially focusing on LIV. And now, everything is about to get a lot worse. Two top Senate Democrats, who are famous for scrutinizing business and antitrust activity, are the pens who called in for a Justice Department investigation into the merger in the first place. And I'm talking about Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren, who's leading the whole thing, and Senator Richard Blumenthal. And that's not all. Even Ron Wyden launched his own investigation. Everyone's after the deal, because not only did the announcement come out of nowhere and flip the tables, but even the CEO of LIV, Greg Norman, wasn't informed. Clearly, they were in a hurry to boost the deal and get it out there. But why? That's what the Justice Department is trying to find out. You see, talking about the Saudi regime's attempts to sanitize its abuses with billion-dollar investments, this deal would make a US organization complicit and even force players to join in on it. To top it off, the deal also seems to have a huge impact on competition, while violating multiple provisions of US antitrust laws, even if it's supposed to be a joint venture. That said, Senator Richard is looking into statements from the PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan and Norman for any more details on the merger, because the PIF has already released statements in the past that it's using its influence in sports to further the Saudi government's objectives. And that's exactly why the PGA Tour has confirmed that Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is going to be a minority investment, which means they'll have a lot of limitations towards the deal. One thing's for sure, the merger is going to put an end to the pending antitrust litigation between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf. And now that they've joined hands to form a larger enterprise chaired by Yasir, everyone is concerned about sponsorships, player compensations, and a bunch of other things that no one from the board is willing to clarify. Even after everyone knew about the PGA Tour's rivalry with LIV, and it was already under scrutiny by federal prosecutors. Meanwhile, the Saudi-backed LIV sparked new controversies, like the fact that Saudi Arabia was just trying to cover up their terrible record on human rights with billion-dollar investments in the golf league. I mean, let's be honest, LIV dangled massive prizes and perks that was not only enough to take the attention away from whatever Saudi Arabia was up to, but also swoop in some high-profile golfers to play in its tournaments. That said, now that the PGA Tour and LIV Golf locked horns in and out of court, let's not forget, Jay never held back from his criticism against LIV. And he's not the only one. But the fact that he's the one who recognized the financial strength of the rival golf series and initiated the merger was exactly what makes the announcement of the proposed merger all the more surprising. As of now, he stepped away from the situation because of a medical matter and is taking a leave of absence. But that isn't going to stop or slow down the investigation in any way. And Ron, who's also one of the toughest critics of Saudi Arabia, wrote a letter stating that the PGA Tour's involvement with the PIF is raining a lot of concerns. Sure, the PGA Tour confirmed that they're going to have administrative rights and will sanction tournaments, but tying themselves up to an authoritarian regime like PIF that has continued to overpower the rule of law while employing their tax-exempt status in the US is definitely concerning. And that wasn't the end of it. In the 4-page letter directed to the PGA Tour Commissioner, Wyden demanded detailed information about multiple issues, ranging from the players' free speech rights to the structure of the deal and compensation of players, to the PIF's involvement or even potential ownership of the deal, because something like that poses a threat to national security. And let's not forget, Washington has a long history of disrupting proposed mergers that don't work out politically. And with the PGA's shock announcement after 2 years of bitter rivalry and legal battles, it's the worst time to let Saudi Arabia take control of top-level golf, especially when the country's relations with Washington are at an all-time low. That said, there are definitely a lot of hurdles that could stand in the way of a deal like that. But the most obvious one would be the US Department of Justice blocking the deal on antitrust grounds. Honestly, no one would be surprised if that happened, at least not more than the original announcement of the deal itself. And if you take it up a notch, even the Biden administration might get involved, thanks to a ton of pressure from Congress, and end up launching a national security review of the proposed merger. Although, Congress doesn't have a lot of concrete evidence to hold on to and block the deal. But with Wyden's proposed bill to strip Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund of tax-exempt status, it could flip the entire deal. Because, let's be honest, the billion-dollar investments were exactly what initiated this merger in the first place. And now, with so much opposition from senior Democrats, there's a lot that could go wrong. Khalid Al-Jabri, a commentator on US-Saudi relations, claims that the PGA LIV merger is exactly the kind of deal you expect from bin Salman, who's known for using his infinite resources to bully his way to getting a seat at the table. But is that going to be the case anymore with all the political involvement? I guess we'll have to wait and find out, because he's definitely managed to turn people around, like even Jay, who openly accepted that people are going to call him a hypocrite for switching sides, from a hostile stance to LIV, all the way to initiating the merger between the two rival leagues. To top it off, I'm pretty sure a bunch of PGA Tour players are regretting not taking up billion-dollar deals from LIV Golf back then, because now the only ones truly benefiting from this merger are gonna be the LIV players. So there you have it. From the political involvement and opposition from senior Democrats to the unpredictable and shocking merger between golf's bitter rivals, that was why the PGA and LIV Golf merger is under investigation.